Okay, hi, I'm Kylie. I'm going to be telling you guys about one of the strangest days of my life. So getting in the car to go to school that day, I had like butterflies in my stomach, and I'm just really excited because after school I was going to have my first violin lesson. And this was like a big deal to me at the time because I was only 7 years old, I was in second grade, and I wanted to play an instrument for so long. So when my parents found out that my elementary school was offering violin lessons, they immediately signed me up. So as I'm getting in the car, my mom's asking me about like making sure I have everything, if I have my violin, if I have my chin rest, if I have my case and my music book, and every time I tell her yes, I'm just getting more and more anxious to actually go to class after school. So my mom drops us off, and I'm saying bye to her, and I'm saying bye to my brother and my sister, and I go to line up outside my classroom. And as I'm standing there, I see more and more kids walking up with their violin cases that I know, and so I'm like, okay, this is really cool, some kids in my class are actually going to be taking lessons with me. So we're all standing there and we're talking about whether or not we think the teacher's going to be nice or mean, and how we think the class is going to go the first day. And there's all these different things. And as soon as we know it, our actual teacher comes out and welcomes us into class. So I go to take my seat, and I realize that on the board it actually says under the agenda the first thing we're going to be talking about is rules. And so in my head I'm like, okay, it's only the second week of school. We're probably just going to review them and talk about what we can do and what we can't do, because once again we're only 7, we need to like review things. So we start to go over when to get up out of our seat, when to raise our hand, like how to check out a library book, different things. And this whole time my mind is still focused on violin lessons because I'm just so excited. So she turns us loose after a little bit, and we're all doing our work, and she like brings our attention back to the class, and she just tells us how she forgot to mention one of the rules that we're going to have. It's called the buddy system, and for those of you that don't know, it's basically if you're going somewhere, you take a buddy with you for protection purposes. So I'm like, okay, not that bad, I can do that. If I go somewhere, just take someone with me. So I sit back down and do my work, still thinking about violin lessons, and my friend Sarah raises her hand and asks if she could use the restroom, which kind of brings me out of my haze. And the teacher, of course, tells her yes, she can go, but she has to pick someone to go to the restroom with her. So she turns to me and asks if I will go with her, and of course I say yes, and we get up and we head towards the restroom. On our way there, Sarah starts to tell me how she's actually taking violin lessons as well. And so we're talking about different performances we get to do and the field trips we get to go on. Like one, we went to the Hollywood Bowl once, and that was pretty cool. And so we get to the restroom, Sarah goes in, and I decide to wait outside up against one of the handball courts. So I'm standing up against the handball courts thinking about violin lessons again, and I'm sliding back and forth with my hands up against the wall. All of a sudden I feel a sharp pinch in my hand, and I don't know what it is, so I look down and I see that there's something kind of stuck in my hand. So I lean a little bit further to see what it is, and there's actually a nail sticking out of the wall that is now stuck inside of my hand. So at this point, I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. I can't get off the wall. So I'm yelling for Sarah. I'm like, Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. Sarah runs outside of the restroom, looks at me, and completely turns white. She's not moving at all, and I'm yelling at her to go get the teacher because I'm still stuck to the wall, and she doesn't move. And so at this point, I have no other options but to rip my hand off the wall and start to run. As soon as the nail becomes dislodged from my hand, there's blood everywhere. It's running down my hand, it's all in my clothes, and as I run to the classroom, I'm leaving somewhat of a trail behind me of blood. And so I get to the classroom door, and I have one hand up in the air, still dripping with blood, and I'm banging on the door, waiting for the teacher to answer. And when she finally opens the door, she sees my hand and immediately pulls me into the classroom and sticks me in front of the sink and tells me to put my hand under the water. So I'm standing at the sink with my hand, gushing blood still, and it's mixed with water now, so the sink is covered in blood. And she's calling the front office to get the nurse to come pick me up. So when the nurse gets me, we go back up to the front of the school at the nurse's office, and my mom is already there waiting for me because luckily she worked at my elementary school, so she was able to get there pretty fast. And as the nurse is like cleaning my hand and wrapping it in bandages and everything, she's telling my mom that she's gonna have to take me to the emergency room because I most likely need stitches. It's a pretty deep cut. So my mom gets me in the car and we head off to the hospital. By the time we get there, it's like mid-afternoon. There's not that many people in the waiting room, so they just take me right back. And as the doctor is looking at my hand and like observing it, seeing how many stitches I need and everything, I'm just really upset that I missed my first violin lessons because I know at this point I'm not going to get to go back to school. So the doctor then tells my mom that I do need stitches, and I'm just kind of nervous, like I don't know if it's going to hurt anything, but he just numbs my hand, does the stitches, it doesn't hurt that bad, it feels like a couple pinches, and compared to the big pinch I had when I was stuck to the wall, it wasn't that bad. And so he gets me done, all my stitches are in, he wraps them all up, And even though I did miss my first violin lesson that day, I was just really excited because I was going to get to go to school the next day and show everybody my stitches with a cool new story. So.